Hello Algebra 2 students, these are your Unit 3 notes on quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is used to solve quadratic equations when you can't factor. And this is your formula right here. So in order to use the formula in a quadratic equation, you need to identify the coefficients a, b, and c. And before you even get started, you have to make sure that one side is 0. So let's look at this example. So in this example, I don't have one side as 0 yet, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And that's going to cross out this negative 4 right here. So x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 0. There's no number in front of the x squared, so that's the same as 1x squared. So my a is 1, my b is 4, and my c is 4. So plugging into the formula, I have x equals negative b, so I write negative 4, plus or minus the square root, b squared, b is still 4, minus 4ac, so 4 times 1 times 4, all over 2 times a. So it's easiest to start with this part underneath the square root and figure that first. This part under the square root is called the discriminant, and we'll talk more about that on the other side of the notes. So 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 4. Now you can put that whole thing in your calculator at once. If you're evaluating it by hand, first you would do exponent, 16 minus, and then you would multiply. 4 times 1 times 4 is 16, and you get 0. So the part under the square root is 0. Negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 2. The square root of 0 is 0, and negative 4 plus 0 is still negative 4. So this just gives me negative 4 divided by 2, which is negative 2. So normally a quadratic equation would have two different answers, but because in this case I'm adding 0 and subtracting 0, I end up with just one answer, negative 2. Okay, let's try another problem together. In problem 1, we already have one side equaling 0. So I can start off with my a is 1, my b is negative 4, and my c is 3. So I'm going to plug back into the same formula. Let's erase this for a second so you can see it. X equals negative b. If your b is already negative, adding another negative to it is going to cancel out, so it's going to become positive 4. Plus or minus the square root. B squared, so if I square negative 4, I need to put parentheses around it like that. Minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. Okay, so now I'm going to look at the inside part. You can put the square of negative 4 minus 4 times 1 times 3 in your calculator all together if you want, or you can evaluate it step by step. So I'm going to look at it here. Negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 3. Negative 4 squared is negative 4 times negative 4, and that's 16. 4 times 1 times 3, that's 12. So 16 minus 12 is 4. So I have x equals 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 over 2. The square root of 4 is 2, so I have 4 plus or minus 2 over 2. So this is two different things I need to do, one with adding, one with subtracting. If I have 4 plus 2 over 2 and 4 minus 2 over 2. So if I add, I get 6 over 2, which is 3. And if I subtract, I get 2 over 2, which is 1. So my two solutions are 1 and 3. Okay, I'm going to save 2 for you to do in just a minute. I'm going to do another problem. Let me try the last one. So in the last problem, I do not have one side equaling 0, so I'm going to add x squared to both sides, like that, and write it in standard form so that the x squared comes first. So you have x squared plus 2x minus 5 equals 0. Okay, so now we need to plug into your formula. X equals negative b, so that would be negative 2, plus or minus square root b squared, so 2 squared, minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. Okay, let's try this time putting the part that's underneath the square root in the calculator and see how that looks. So in the calculator I'm going to do 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 5. So 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 5. Okay, so I get that the part under the square root is the number 24. So x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 24 over 2. Now the square root of 24 can be simplified. You need to break it into its prime factors. So I have 4 times 6, 4 is 2 times 2, 6 is 2 times 3. So I can take a 2 out of the square root, and then I'll have 2 times 3, which is 6, still under the square root. So it's negative 2 plus or minus 2, that's the one I took out, root 6, that's the part that's stuck underneath the square root, divided by 2. Now in this case, because both terms can be divided by 2, I'm going to simplify one step more. When you simplify one step more, you have to remember to divide both parts of the numerator by 2. Like that. So negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1 plus or minus 2 root 6 divided by 2. The 2's will cancel and I just get root 6. Okay, so here pause the video for a minute and try the other problems. Try problems 2 and 4. And then after you give them a good try, then you can go back and play the video and check your answers. Okay, in problem 2, my a is 2, my b is 3, and my c is negative 4. So I have x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c over 2 times a. Okay, so let's put this part in your calculator. You have 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 4. And let's see, you should get 32 plus 9. You should get square root of 41. Now 41 is actually prime, so I can't break that number into any more prime factors. So this problem does not simplify further. This is your final answer. Alright, and in problem 4, I need to start by making one side 0. So I'm going to subtract that 3. And I have x squared plus 3x minus 3 equals 0. So my A is 1, my B is 3, and my C is negative 3. X equals negative B plus or minus the square root B squared minus 4AC over 2 times A. Alright, so let's look at this B squared minus 4AC. 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 3. 3 squared is 9, minus 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. So remember that minus negative is plus. So I get 9 plus 12, which is 21. So x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 21 over 2. 21 is prime. It doesn't simplify, so this is my final answer. Oops, 21 is not actually prime. It has factors 3 and 7, but neither of those will come out. Alright, on the next page we talk more about the discriminant. The discriminant is the part that's underneath the square root, so it's the b squared minus 4ac. And if the question only asks you how many solutions exist or what kind of solutions exist, you can use the discriminant as a shortcut. So if the discriminant is positive, if b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, positive, then you have two real solutions, because if you do the square root of a real number, you get a real number. If you do the square root of a positive number, you get a real number. So two real solutions. If your b squared minus 4ac is 0, you get one real solution, and that happened in our very first example, because if you add 0 and if you subtract 0, you get the same number, so just one real solution. And if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, so that would make it negative, then you have no real solutions. Instead, you have two imaginary solutions. Okay, so let's look down here. In the example, we identify A, B, and C, and that we find that b squared minus 4ac is 49, which is positive, so we have two real solutions. Let's look at the practice problem. It says, is the equation in the right order? Not yet. We do want the x squared to be positive, so I'm going to subtract both the 6x and the 5. So I have x squared minus 6x minus 5 equals 0. And these are the values I'm going to plug into just the b squared minus 4ac. So my a is 1, my b is negative 6, and my c is negative 5. So b squared minus 4 times a times c. Okay? And let's put that in the calculator. So make sure that you put parentheses around your negative 6. Okay, I get that the discriminant is positive 56, and if it's a positive number, you should have two real solutions. Okay, so now I'd like you to try problems 8, 9, and 10 before you watch the rest of the video, so pause your video and give these a try. Okay, let's see if you got them right. So here's your A, B, and C. And I'm going to do b squared, so 5 squared, minus 4 times A times C. get positive 121. Because it's positive, there are 2 real solutions. Okay, in 9, my a is 1 and my b is negative 1. So b squared minus 4 times a times c. Oops, I forgot to square my negative 1. Alright, I get negative 23 this time. So this is the first time I got a negative number. Let's go back and see what that is. If you get a negative number, you have no real solutions, you have 2 imaginary solutions. Alright, and in 10, I need to make one side 0, so I'm going to add x squared. And I have x squared plus 2x minus 5 equals 0. So my a, b, and c. b squared minus 4 times a times c. So 2 squared is 4 minus negative 20. Minus negative makes plus, so I get a positive 24. And because this is positive, I know that there are 2 real solutions.